Let me get to my next call. Hold on. What's going on, Mike Nificent? What's happening?
ABL, what's good, man?
Everything's so good, man. It's been a little while, man. How's everything?
Going great, man. Going great. Got a lot of stuff on my mind, man. It's been a while since I called into the show.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. So I want to get your thoughts, and I was waiting to see if you made a video about it, and you might have. I don't know. I've been kind of busy today, but I just watched Brandon Tatum's video on the Central Park 5 thing, and I know why it's being brought up now and what their plan is and what they're doing as far as trying to tug at our heartstrings and all of that. But what are your thoughts on the whole Central Park 5 incident? And then what are your thoughts on how Netflix and the Obamas and everybody, they're using Netflix as a vessel to kind of traffic in all this propaganda to try to throw off the 2020 election? I just want to get your whole rundown on that.
Now, first, I watched some of Brandon's video. I've not been able to see the whole thing, but I know that he knows what's going on more than I do, really, because I've not seen the documentary or whatever it is on Netflix yet, and I'm not really all the way familiar with the incident. I know the general gist of it. You got these five black teens. They got charged for, I think it was a rape case back in the late 80s, early 90s, I guess. And
Yeah.
they confessed to the crime, but then they were exonerated later by DNA, apparently. I was watching Brandon's video and he said that they were not necessarily, like, they may have been exonerated, but it doesn't mean that they were not innocent. That mean that they were innocent. They could have actually done it, but just based upon how the evidence played out, it got them off. So I'm not really sure what to think. I got to look at the documentary and read more about the case before I make my decision. But I know that Ava DuVernay, I mean, this is not a good director. I saw that movie Selma. That was a terrible movie, awful movie. Not because of the message, not because of her, because it was a bad film. So when I saw that she was going to be in it, I'm like, okay, I know what's going on here. They're going to have her in there because you got a female director, girl power, and she's black. And then you're going to put this thing out there to, like you said, try and derail the 2020 election. That's what it's pretty much about. But as far as the facts and all the details of the case, I'm not totally familiar with it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you because, I thought about making a video on it, but I'm like, actually, I only know the gist of it, and I don't necessarily want to weigh in on the actual event and everything that went on. I'm more focused on, okay, here we are now in 2019, and why are we talking about this 30 years later? Well, if you're awake to what's going on, you know exactly why we're talking about it now, because they want to ultimately put that in the forefront of black people's minds and Americans' minds, really, and say, look, Donald Trump took out those ads. He wanted black people killed and lynched and all that. And see, the thing is, I've seen on Twitter, a lot of people already knew that it was going to be this kind of reaction. It's an emotional reaction. It's not anybody that's looking into the facts of the case. Anybody interested in the truth, they're interested in fulfilling that narrative that we are perpetual victims and we're always trying to overcome. You notice that it's always like, we shall overcome, we shall overcome. But there's no real plan for us to actually overcome. It's become an industrial complex for us to be in fear and anger always. And like, it's just so crazy, man. Now, after being a conservative for a couple of years and listening to your channel and other channels and being awake and seeing what's really going on, I'm like, wow, I've seen this before. And I used to be on the other side of it where I would get triggered. Like I got triggered with all those shootings in 2015. And I'm like, man, white man's always keeping us down and all this. And now I'm looking on the other side and I'm like seeing so many of my brothers and sisters just like struggling to get through it. And I'm like, all you got to do is just use a little bit of discernment, and use your brain and think about it. Think for yourself. Like, is America more racist in 2019 than it was in 1920? Think about it. But it's all just gaslighting, like they can convince you that another reality exists than the one that you actually experience. And the next thing I want to ask you, though, as it relates to all of this is, I don't know, it kind of feels to me like, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it feels to me like this almost puts a dent into all the momentum that Brexit has made. And, everything else seemed to be going pretty good with black Americans waking up, warming up to Trump, whatever, just walking away from the Democrats. Really, it's not even about Trump. But do you think that this sets the movement back or it hinders it at any point? Do you think that this is going to have any kind of implications in the 2020, or do you think it's just a blip in the radar? We're going to keep this Trump train going forward?
It's a blip in the radar because there's always some kind of thing like this out there in the media, whether it be a movie, TV series, a news report, an article online. There's always something like this that gets kind of popular, gets a lot of attention, and it kind of goes away. People that want to believe in a thing like this, they're going to believe in it. Those that aren't really there, they're not going to be there. People that are leaning more conservative, they'll look at it with more of a, how can I say, with more of an eye of scrutiny. They're going to say what's really going on. Let me do some reading, research to see what's happening, rather than just saying, oh, Trump is a bad guy. He is a racist, this, that, and the third. Many of us have already kind of been through all of that. That's why we over here on the right. And those of us that are still trying to make that transition are still going to be going down that road. So I don't think a thing like this will kind of get in the way, really. If a Netflix series is enough to take a person away from this direction, then they're probably not ready, and they were not going to be ready by anytime soon, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good point. I consider that. Like, if they could get derailed off of one little documentary or whatever, then it wasn't time for that anyway.
Right.
You know what? I've also heard a lot of people conservatives confidently saying Trump 2020 is going to happen in a landslide. He's definitely winning, and I agree. Like, on paper, in a fair fight, Trump should win in a landslide. However, look at what they did in 2016 alone with the Russian collusion. Look at the trade war with China. I'm pretty sure China might have a vested interest in waiting out this war to see if Trump doesn't get reelected so they can go back to the status quo of ripping the country off, right? So wouldn't China have some kind of interest in trying to manipulate our election one way or the other? You see, we still have open borders and illegals are coming over, which illegals just means Democrat voters. And with election fraud and everything else, do you really feel confident that they're not going to cheat this election? I'm just keeping my fingers crossed, holding my breath, knocking on wood, hoping that it does happen in a landslide. Because in a fair fight, like I said, no way he loses. But everything else just feels like, man, they're going to try something.
Well, what they're trying to do right now is a whole impeachment thing. Well, they're trying to do impeachment by a different name. They're trying to do all these investigations. That's their only card they can really play, in my opinion. They can't really go down the electioneering route, because they can only really do that in Democratic strongholds. And you saw Hillary Clinton; she won the Democratic strongholds overwhelmingly, but it was not enough. She won the popular vote by like 2 or 3 million, but it was not enough because she couldn't get across the country. And that's where we're the strongest at, is in all of the country, not just in small little pockets of liberal people like in California, New York, Illinois. We have the entire country. They're going to try to do this whole thing with the voter fraud, where you can just go in there with no ID and just say, hey, I'm Juan Ramirez, I want to vote. Juan might be dead or whatever, it doesn't matter. Those would be the liberal places, but in other places where you gotta have an ID and whatnot, it's actually pretty hard to steal an election. It's very hard to steal an election. All that hacking and whatnot, that's not really a thing, in my opinion. So they're gonna try, but they're not gonna be successful. Hillary Clinton was a strong candidate, honestly, stronger than anybody that's out there right now in the race. Joe Biden, it would be easy for Trump to defeat him. All he's gotta do is go out there and say, hey, you wrote the crime bill. I am rolling back the crime bill. And then he could bring my daughter Z Free on stage with him. He could say, hey, here's Allison Reed Johnson. Here's a few others that I freed from jail because of what you wrote, what you signed into law, and what you supported, and what you don't regret. So he's a weak candidate on top of Trump being the incumbent. So he'll have even more support from the entire country who are pleased with what he's doing so far. So if it was 2016, it'd be kind of tough. It was tough, but Trump still won. Now he's the incumbent. It's easier, and he'll win again. All we got to do is just keep that same energy we had back then, and we'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. The other thing I forgot is the states with the Electoral College. You know about that? Like the 15 states that signed on to give their electoral votes to whoever wins the popular vote, which is almost always going to be a Democrat because they're basing it on, those strongholds and those enclaves, those cities. You don't think that's a problem either?
Nah, because it's funny because the states we're talking about this are like pretty much liberal states. So
Yeah, that's true.
It wouldn't really matter. Like their vote will probably go to a Joe Biden. And what would be hilarious is if Trump were to win the popular vote. So let's say California signed it into law and then they got to vote for Trump, although Joe Biden actually won. That'd be just poetic justice right there. That'd be fantastic.
Oh yeah, yeah. And even Tim Pool was saying that like if we did away with that and just you gave the electoral votes to whoever won the popular vote, then that would actually bring out the conservatives in these liberal strongholds who wouldn't have voted otherwise. Because if you're in California and you're a Republican, you feel like you're just throwing your vote away, right? Because it's gonna go towards a Democrat either way. But if they don't have the electoral votes going to the popular candidate, or if they do have it going to popular candidate, then you might be like, my vote matters more now. So it could actually work in Republicans' favor, but I don't know.
That's right.
Last thing I wanna bring up before I let you go. What are your thoughts on this whole censorship thing with YouTube? Because I've seen a lot of you know about the Steven Crowder thing,
Yeah.
and how they're de-ranking videos. I've felt the heat on my channel just
really?
with views being down. Yeah, subscribers. Like my analytics have been just out of whack for pretty much the last month. What do you think about that? Do you think that this is going to correct itself? Do you see an end in sight for this? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel for YouTube, or is it going to be something that we're always going to have to overcome as people who are dissenters, people who have wrong think? Do you think we'll be able to overcome and it's going to be a fair platform? Do you think the monetization will go away? Just what are your thoughts on that?
It's always going to be a problem as long as there are people that are opposing this, the left, because really what it boils down to is leftist media trying to attack their opponents. In the case of Steven Crowder, he had a guy from Vox that was going back and forth and talking about, oh, he was rationing for 2 years. And it was really between him and the guy from Vox. So when the guy from Vox gets a lot of attention, becomes kind of viral, you have other outlets that pick up on it. Now you have a big story, negative PR for YouTube and Steven Crowder. So you got the people that have the ad dollars in their hands that pay YouTube to run ads. They're saying, hey, this is a problem. You got a bad PR thing right here. I don't want my particular company to be associated with him. So unless you take away his monetization, I'm going to take my ads from the whole platform altogether. So really it's the media creating bad PR and then the advertisers responding and then YouTube responding. So it's just kind of this weird little triangle to try to keep everybody happy. And it's always going to be there because if a media outlet decides they don't like you, especially if you're a white male and you're conservative, that makes it even worse. If you're one of us that's black and conservative, you have a little bit of a shield, but it's not that strong. You said that your channel kind of felt it. I've not really seen it on mine, but I know that some videos are not as popular as they should be, and they're not monetized the way they should be, depending upon the topic. I know they're already, because they already said that they're going to rank the so-called mainstream and trusted sources above us when it comes to news. And then they're going to put certain little notices on our video talking about, oh, if it's a climate change video, they're going to put Wikipedia links up under it before you get to the actual box of description. So that's going to be a problem. It's always going to be there, but it's all about the advertising. It's all about money, really. So that's going to be there for a while, but I'm not really sure if it will be something that will kill the platform. It'll just be kind of an annoyance, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, and then like I've had a lot of my subscribers like, why don't you just go to Gab and go to BitChute and all these other? I'm like, first of all, they don't run as well as YouTube. Secondly, if all conservatives go over there, then it just becomes like an echo chamber of conservatives. When in reality, we need to be on these other platforms because that's where we're reaching liberals, on these other platforms. And then all they're doing is bullying these payment processors like PayPal and all them, like, don't work with them because they're bigots, like it just doesn't seem like it would work out for us to try to go to another platform anyway, which is why I'm going to stay on these platforms until they kick me off. You know what I mean? I just feel like that's the best way to go about it because hopefully that'll bring about change by me refusing to leave the platform.
I agree with you. Ain't no point going over there to these echo chambers. It's like putting your video in the shoebox. You're going to get less views, less reach, and you won't really accomplish your goals the way you want. Stay on the most popular platforms and just get it out there and don't let them run you off. Because what they want really is for us to go away. But as long as we stay and keep fighting the good fight, I think everything will work out for the best in the end. But it might hurt for a little while. Might be a little painful for a little while, but I think it'll all be good in the end.
Yes, sir. And with that said, everybody go subscribe to Mike Nificent. Come find my channel. I came to ABL so I can borrow some subscribers.
Hey, definitely. I'm gonna put your link in the chat box. So everybody subscribe to Mike Nificent right now, man. Your channel is booming, man. You almost like what, about 40,000 subscribers almost?
Yeah, I'm pushing it. I'm pushing it. Getting there.
Yeah, man. So y'all subscribe to Mike Nificent right now. Great channel, great content, and that's all I got, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. And I'll have to have you on in a couple weeks, man, as a guest on my channel too.
Oh, definitely, man. I love to do it. Absolutely, man.
All right, man. Have a good night. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for calling, man. Definitely appreciate you. All right.
Later.